FBI Director James Comey expected to face some tough questioning before the House Intelligence Committee this morning, focusing on wiretapping, election tampering, and a lot more. For more this morning, let's bring in Alexander Vershbow, former ambassador to Russia, former Deputy Secretary General of NATO. Mr. Ambassador, good morning to you. It's good to have you. Not often we get an open intelligence hearing quite like this one. I wonder, what are you going to be listening for?
Well, I'm listening for more information, more details about what the Russians actually did to interfere in our elections, because that's the big issue here. And we still don't know all the answers. The intelligence agencies agreed on sort of the bottom line, but exactly how serious this threat is and how we prevent it from happening in the future and how we can help our allies do the same thing is what I'm most interested in. But of course, there's a lot of suspicions regarding the Trump campaign, whether the contacts represented collusion of any kinds. So far, we don't know any information to confirm that. So hopefully these hearings will clear up whatever suspicions still exist.
How does Comey balance the need to protect an investigation if one is ongoing and at the same time protect the reputation of his people at the FBI?
Well, that's a tough line for him to straddle. Hopefully we'll get more information, particularly about this and hacking. But given that there's so many questions that have been fueled by the cover-up by some members of the administration and the campaign, he'll have to at least clear up some of the biggest misconceptions so that these suspicions don't linger. The Trump administration needs to get on with defining a policy towards Russia. This is an important relationship, and all these suspicions, I think, are getting in the way of the real challenges that we face in dealing with a very aggressive Russia.
On that front, we were just talking about a trade rift developing among G20 nations after the finance ministers met this weekend. There's also an op-ed, Mr. Ambassador, in Russia Today. White House meeting with Trump was catastrophic for Merkel, talking about some of the sort of more nuanced slights there. How is Russia looking at all of this, and how does it affect our future relationship with it?
Yeah. Well, I don't think the meeting with Merkel was catastrophic, but it's in the Russians' interest to try to portray it as that, because their main objective is to divide the United States from its allies, to weaken Europe, to weaken NATO. And so any signs of differences of view on policy, on how to deal with Russia, is music to their ears. So they'll try to sort of throw salt on the wounds as much as they can. What this administration needs to do is look ahead, figure out what it needs to achieve with Russia, get the allies to line up with us so that we can form a united front. Otherwise, if we're divided, we're lost.
Ambassador, you mentioned you'd like to hear a lot more detail about Russian potential interference in our election. I wonder to what degree we can even expect a lot of detail, even at the end of this. In other words, if it's a lot of, well, Russia always does this to adversaries' elections, and largely it's circumstantial or it's atmospheric in nature, this kind of interference, where does it ultimately get to an endpoint of saying, this was something decisive or not?
Well, that may be something we can never fully agree upon. I think it'll be a judgment call for different readers of the reports and of the testimony. But I think we have to remember that what the Russians did may not have been entirely a thing, but the scale, the ambitiousness, the strategic focus on undermining one candidate went beyond anything we've ever seen before. They may try the same thing in France or in Germany, which have big elections this year. So we really need to understand so we can protect ourselves, whether it's hardening our networks, getting social media to be much more vigilant about both labeling fake news and taking it off if they can find a way to take these things off the network before they go viral. Otherwise, we're going to be the victims of disinformation, propaganda, manipulation, which no democracy should put up with.
We look forward to learning a lot more in the next few hours, Mr. Ambassador. Thanks for your time. Good to see you.
You're welcome.
Ambassador Alexander Vershbow.
When we return, a look at the signs pointing to a potential surge in M&A activity. Also taking a look at futures here. Little change to down slightly. Actually, the Dow futures just turned positive, up 2. S&P down less than 2. More Squawk on the Street live from the NYSE. Straight ahead.
Dear Brian and